Good afternoon, Colin. How are you doing today?
Good, man. Good. I'm glad to finally get to talking to you.
Yeah. I mean, we try a bit, but then we both have, hectic schedules, right?
Exactly.
Right. So, a couple nights ago, you were off playing with your old band, right? Musical Chairs?
Yeah.
Yeah, so did you start in that before you joined Slaves?
Yeah, that was the band I was in right before I joined Slaves. It's kind of like an indie rock band. It's really cool, really fun band. And that was in California, that was in Sacramento. And all those dudes and ladies went to, they're in Florida now, and that's where I'm at. I'm just visiting my family and friends in Florida, so they asked me to play a few shows with them, and yeah, it's just fun, man.
Hell yeah, dude.
It's good. It's a good balance to everything.
Yeah. So, now we're talking about balance, and I'm glad you mentioned that because you guys, Slaves, have been very much bouncing around for the last, 2 albums or so, haven't you?
Yeah.
I remember you started with them back in 2014, but then you left the band temporarily before you came back during Routine Breathing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Could you tell us a bit more about that? Tell us about the reasons behind your absence?
That was just, so when the band, that was actually Alex trying to bring Chris Kim, our old guitar player, the first guitar player we had, in with him because they were in a band called Hearts and Hands.
Right.
And when Alex got asked to join the band because he wrote the album. So what happened was Johnny's management, Eric Rushing at the time, wanted Johnny to get back in the band, and they were talking about that for a while, and then they finally went to go pursue that, and Alex wrote an album for pretty much just for Johnny to start this band with. And then after the album was written and they were in talks for a while, Johnny just asked Alex to join the band. And Alex agreed to that, but wanted to bring Chris Kim into the band. So, and I was actually had other things going on with Musical Chairs that time, and, just busy with life. And so, long story short, Jason was supposed to be the original guitar player for the band. He moved to bass. I went on my own with Musical Chairs, and Chris joined the band and became the lead or rhythm guitar player. I forget, both pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of sat back for, I think it was 3 months until Johnny came back and asked if I wanted to come back to the band. And at that time they were doing actually really good. I was actually surprised with how far the band came along. So I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'll join this band. And you guys are touring Australia and all these cool spots. So, yeah, that's ever since then, that's just been with Slaves exclusively.
Naturally. Actually, I wanted to ask, were you there for the Hold On Pain Ends tour with the Color Morale?
Yeah. I was already in the band for a good amount of time before that, I think.
That's awesome. That was actually my first actual hardcore show that I had been to, if you'd call it that.
And what city was that?
That was in Springfield, April. It was
okay, cool.
Yeah, April 25th, 2015. Man, crazy show. Guys brought down the house.
Nice. Yeah, that was a fun tour.
Yeah. Probably, because I had walked in and I was so confused. I didn't know what was going on, and I just see this dude standing over there. I'm like, that's Johnny Craig, isn't it? Oh man, that's Johnny Craig. And I bought you guys' backpack, and he autographed it. And then, maybe a couple hours, and some change later, we were all just throwing down in the pit, and Johnny was just getting all up in our faces. And there was this whole light show that you guys had attached to Ty's drums and all of that. Oh, man.
Those are awesome lights and everything. Yeah, that's cool, man. I'm glad that's one of your first memories of your first concert.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So, which is actually why I thought it was actually probably the dopest thing that I could get a chance to go and sit down and talk with you, right? So
yeah, man.
Yeah. So so then, following from Through Art We Are Equals, you guys dropped Routine Breathing.
Yep.
So Johnny, I'm looking back through the interview that he gave with Alternative Press on the 20th, and he was talking about how he in retrospect, didn't really feel too hot about how routine breathing was in retrospect.
Yeah, so to elaborate on that, I probably what he's talking about is just at that time. So the band, like I said, started kind of unnaturally, just it was just Johnny wanting to get back into a band, so he gathered these, musicians pretty much around the United States that like he just felt connected with, and so that's how the band started. And then with that the first album came out, and it was really good, and it was really exciting because it was the first thing, first band Johnny's been back in since the Amorosa and Dance Gavin Dance.
Right.
So it was exciting. It was new, and everybody, it had a lot of hype behind it. And by the time the second album, Routine Breathing, was ready to be recorded, a lot already happened with our band. That was right after the Warped Tour. No, actually, that wasn't. That was before the Warped Tour. There was already so much history with touring. There was just straight a year of touring, and the band was kind of starting to fall apart a little bit. Like arguments were happening, on the road, and that was right after, actually, that's what it was. It was right after the Hold On Pain Ends tour.
Right.
And that was a real long tour, and we were already on, that was I think it was 8 months straight we were on tour, including that Hold On Pain Ends tour. And we went straight into the studio, and it was kind of when the band was just I don't know, I feel like we were all in kind of an unhappy place. It was just maybe things happened too fast with the band, or it was just, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't, it was everybody was on edge in the studio. I just remember that everybody was just kind of man, we just want to kind of go home and take a little, not a break, but just maybe just relax for a month instead of being on the road, and so maybe I think that's what he was talking about, getting into that, because I felt the same way too, I know Ty and Alex got in a huge argument before we went into the studio, and Ty didn't even go. Ty flew home. So that's where our band was pretty much at that point. We couldn't even have everybody in the studio because we were just all too on edge. I think everybody was kind of burnt out is probably pretty much the best way I could explain it. And then having to record an album for a month in the studio right at that point is just you're not going to get the good vibes that. I learned, especially on this last album, the good vibes are everything in the studio. If you don't have the good vibes, it's going to completely reflect on the music, for sure. And I don't think Routine Breathing was a bad album at all. And I know Johnny doesn't think that either, but it's all about the experience, too. And I think when we think back, we look back and think about how Routine Breathing was created, it wasn't the best of memories. It just wasn't good vibes.
So what I'm hearing from you is that songwriting has to be, it can't be forced. Yeah,
it has to be organic, man. You're exactly right. It has to, or else you're gonna. And it can be forced, and sometimes that works for people, if you get lucky. But yeah, I feel like it just directly affects you can almost hear it in the album. You can almost it's just, yeah, man. Especially for the people who created it, it's if you think back at it. And it's a bad experience for you, you're going to listen to the album, and you're just going to be
Right. And
you might be able to see past it, but you're still going to have that feeling of just yeah, that was shitty, man.
Yeah, and I remember listening to the album, and I was, some parts were, absolutely mind-blowing. I loved, for example, your lead singles that you guys dropped with, Running Through the Six, Burning Our Morals Away, stuff like that. But on other times, it did kind of feel, in some cases, it kind of suffered from a lack of inspiration. And
exactly.
Which is what kind of brings us now that you guys are, from what I hear, now a three-piece with Weston Trent Richmond currently on guitar, you on bass, and Johnny on vocals, and you guys recorded with the drummer on Hardest. You guys don't have a permanent spot, but from what I hear, the songwriting for this was, going back to our previous comment, much more natural, much more organic, much more returning to just simple, straightforward, let's go, let's, actually write like we want to.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was. It's so this time around, so another thing to mention was that Alex wrote those first two albums. He pretty much already had Routine Breathing written shortly after the first album was written. those were a lot of those songs were old songs that he had written a while ago. So this time around, Alex wasn't in the band at the time of us recording, and we wanted to just completely take. There wasn't that much since all the songs were pretty much written for the first two albums. There was no real freedom to create in the band, and so this time around it was like just whatever we wanted. We had so much emotions of what happened with our band in the past 2 years almost. So much that that needed to be said, and so much that could have been put into that music that we wanted, and we had total freedom to do it. So we went into the studio with Eric Ron, and he was the best person to go with because, his work has been amazing. Everything I've heard, I've loved. Didn't know much about his personality and everything going into the studio, but it turned out to just be he's the best person to work with, the best person we've ever worked with by far. And it was more writing in the studio, writing how we felt, right? Like talking about stuff before we went to go into, the writing phase. And, every day we'd sit down, have a conversation, talk, and then, start writing songs. And that's how it was. And everything was written in the studio, and it was written around Johnny's vocals. And that's how we wanted to do it this way around.
Damn. All right. So now that also kind of leads us to what you guys have released so far, which is I'd Rather See Your Star Explode. Firstly, damn, I really like this. This is, it feels bouncy, but at the same time it feels beefy, and it feels up in your face, and it feels straightforward, and it seems to also, while somewhat, remaining technical, it's also, anthemic, and I can hear the bass in the mix. I can hear, Weston's guitar. He seems to be having so much fun, right? It almost sounds like the same technical, fretboarding that Alex employed in his first two albums.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's everything we kind of wanted to hear. Actually coming into that, I sent Eric Ron, I think a song or two, right when we first started talking about recording, right when everything was said, like everything was ready to go, kind of. A couple weeks before that, I sent him a couple songs, and he really liked them. But he was like, you know what, man? He's like, I want something. Let's come up with something more bouncy and more driven, because they were kind of. They were pretty driven songs too, but he wanted something a little bit more upbeat, and he was completely right. He wanted the first single that we put out after all this time to really, be in your face kind of. And so he was like, hey, let's just go and start from scratch with a single. Come in the studio, me and you'll sit down. We'll write a song that's more driven, more bouncy, and more in your face for this first single, because I think people are gonna take to that a lot more. It's gonna be more, coming back with we're coming back with with a punch, and so yeah, I have to give him credit on that. What you say about it being more bouncy and stuff like that, that was totally Eric's idea to come out with a single like that. And yeah, Johnny killed it on it. The melodies are great; they're all there. That's something you guys would think everybody's going to notice on this new album, these new songs. That all the melodies are strong like that. That single's not even the best song on the album in my opinion. I'm a lot more excited about a few songs on the album that you guys are going to hear. It's they're all really strongly written like that, really strong melodies. And Johnny just killed it on all of it.
All right. And I'm glad to hear that. And actually, when do you guys plan on releasing this? Do you guys have something like that already figured out?
No exact dates, but every time we talk about it, it's always the beginning to midsummer that gets brought up. So I'm sure right around there, we're gonna get a couple tours out of the way and throw a couple more singles at everybody with maybe a couple more videos. That's kind of the goal. That's what we want to do, and then release the album after that. So we'll probably give you guys another song or two, and then release the album.
And you mentioned music videos, and this is, I think, is also pretty important to what you guys have done as a band, right? In the first two albums, you guys had yourself in warehouses or buildings, just playing, going ape, right? Whatever. And then now you have this new album, which is in some cases meant to. I feel like it was meant to be taken as, you know, sort of a departure from your guys' original image as a band, and now you guys are playing around with music videos, playing around with ideas.
Yeah, man, these are all really good questions. That's exactly right. Yeah, we had everything was kind of forced. With those, we did those 2 music videos for Routine Breathing. I think it was Running Through the Six and
Burning Our Morals.
I don't know. What was the other one?
Burning Our Morals Away?
Yes. Those 2 videos were done in one day. They were done right before Warped Tour. They were, it was just kind of like, hey, we need to do these 2 videos while they're in Sacramento right now. Find, you know, the closest warehouse with, you know, and do, you know, shoot these 2 videos in one day. And that was actually right after, I don't know if you know about this, but there was a whole, like, stabbing incident where Alex and Weston.
Yeah, I remember that.
Got in, like, yeah, so that was, like, less than a week after that. So it was just, that's another thing. It was, like, kind of a shitty experience.
It was taxing, I'd imagine.
What was that?
It was taxing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, that's when you think back at those videos, we're sitting in this warehouse. It was literally 125 degrees in there. And they, you know, the morale was down. That stuff, all that just happened. So it was just another exactly a taxing moment in our band's career. And this time around, yeah, we want to do everything right. We that's actually since when Ty and Alex and actually Weston and at that point left the band, me and Johnny just said everything from here on out is going to be done the right way. It's not going to be rushed. Everything in this band's been kind of rushed and forced. That's been like the like a theme internally throughout the band, and we knew that if we were gonna give this another try, we're gonna have to do things the right way, and we wanted to record things the right way, how we wanted to record them, the sound we wanted to record. We had the freedom to do that, and we have the freedom to now make all the decisions where we don't want to do a performance video. We've done a few of those. All 3 of our videos that were released, actual official videos, were performance videos, and we wanted to give people more. We're all more artistic people than that, and we wanted to just show that a little bit more. So, yeah, this video we made sure we wanted to do a plot theme and no performance shots, and there'll be more videos like that for sure.
Oh man,
there's more creativity going on than just simple performance videos. Any band can do that, really. So.
Yeah, and going back to creativity, as you mentioned, one of the detractions that you guys have received historically on the last 2 albums was that there was a lack of creativity in what you guys were putting out, which was this, you know, heavy, broody, technical rock, and now you have now you have this new album. Can you tell us a bit about what we can expect? You said, of course, stronger melodies. Johnny's voice is doing so much better. Can we expect what can we expect musically overall?
Yeah, man. Musically, you could expect. There's songs that are very heavy on the R&B side, where it's almost like. It's like a radio song, almost like a singer-songwriter song that, but it's full band. And then, you have Johnny's on top of the mix with his vocals, and it's very R&B, and it's very new age, kind of like radio songs. But then there's the full band aspect where the guitar, it's still, 7-string guitar, not necessarily so chuggy, but there are songs on the album that are a little, even a little bit heavier than what I think we've done. But yeah, so you got the heavier side, you got the R&B side, and there's even we have a ballad song where it's just very emotional. It's kind of piano based. There's the storytelling in all the songs. That's probably my favorite part. Probably in the whole album is just the lyrical content. The storytelling is just. Everything's so the songs are written for a specific reason, whereas our last 2 albums, you could almost be like, oh, well, what's he singing about there? That's cool, but what's he singing about? This time around, you're like, oh, wow, that melody just really hit me in the face, and the lyrics are just hit me in the heart. everything that you could hear what every song is written about. You could hear there's a meaning behind everything, and that's probably my favorite part on this whole new album, to be honest with you.
I like that. One of my favorite things about Johnny Craig's music career is probably his work on Emarosa's Self-Titled, because I felt like his lyrics were, in comparison to everything else he's done, despite the fact that he's technically proficient, despite he's a great singer, I felt like Emarosa's Self-Titled was, some of his most honest, reflective lyrics. Going back to that, I think, would it suffice to say that we can see more of that on this record?
Well, honestly, after we released the single, I saw a couple people bring up Emarosa's Self-Titled album, and to be 110% honest with you, I've never listened to any of the Emarosa albums.
Wow.
Up until literally like last week. And it was because I kept on seeing all these comments like, oh, this is Emarosa vibe, this is Emarosa Self-Titled, brings me back to that, and so I listened to it, and I really like it, it's really good. I was just never, I never listened to it, to tell you the truth, but I listened to it the other day, and yeah, it's actually really good, and yeah, it does kind of remind me of that vibe to it, as far as like, yeah, the honesty in the lyrics and stuff like that. And Johnny sings a bit higher and on this new album, and it kind of reminds me of how I noticed he sung a bit higher in that Emarosa album.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I guess it does kind of compare to it a little bit, but the recording quality is much better. I mean, obviously it's years later, everything's way more advanced.
I actually have that CD sitting right next to me as we speak. I brought it with me to school as the only album that I've been able to put on my computer.
Yeah.
Thought that was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's crazy, man, because a couple people have asked me about this, about that Emarosa album lately, and I honestly just listened to it for the first time last week, and yeah, I mean, I really like it. But yeah, I mean, I do think this new album's a lot better.
All right.
Honestly, but that's maybe I'm a little biased. But I think the people out there will too. I mean,
yeah.
Like I said, I've never heard Johnny sound as good as he sounds on this album.
All right. I'm honestly, dude, I'm so excited. Can we expect to see guest vocals, anything like that, or is that?
Guest vocals we're in the middle of right now. There won't be as many as usual, if there's any. So far, I think we're only talking to like one person seriously about it. But if there is, if we do have a guest vocal, if it does pan out to work out for us, it'll be by far the biggest guest vocal we had on an album.
Oh man.
Can't mention any names yet, but if it'll either be like one, maybe two, or none. So
you say the biggest.
We do want to go big if we're gonna get one, though.
Yeah, you say the biggest guest vocal you guys have ever done, and I'm thinking about how you pulled on Spencer Chamberlain from Under Oath.
Yeah.
I'm just like, if you guys can go bigger than that.
Right now, the guy that we're talking to is absolutely killing it.
Okay.
So
okay.
And it's different. He's not really in our scene, so it's exciting.
Now you got me wondering, Colin. All right. Well, I mean, thank you so much. Like, over the course of this interview, I feel like we had a good talk, right?
Yeah, man. You had really great questions. I commend you on that.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm always trying to find better ways to talk about things like this, and I'm excited to go and hear your new whatever you guys have got to serve up.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I'm excited to show it to you.
Do you have anything that you'd like to plug to our listeners?
Just I guess if anybody's listening out in the UK and Europe, we'll be out there in March. We're doing that pretty much all of March, and it's pretty much all of Europe and the UK. And then if any listeners are out there in Australia, we're doing that the first week, so you can get your tickets. Just go on any of our social media. You can find the links to the tickets. Keep an eye out for the new album. Keep listening to the new single. And thank you guys for sticking with us. We're all excited to show you guys this new version of Slaves, and I think everybody's really going to like it. If you like the first single, you're going to be really happy with the album. So.
And you guys are touring on with Avion Row and Outline in Color, right?
We have before, yes.
All right, and who's going to be joining you on this this European leg?
I'm not sure. I think the direct sport just got confirmed a couple days ago, if not I think at the end of last week. So, but it'll be all posted on our social media, so you guys can check it out. I know in Australia we're touring with Awaken I Am. That's the direct sport for us. So,
fantastic.
As far as the Europe tour, you'll see that on social media when you buy the tickets. You guys can check that out.
All right. Well, Colin, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I can't wait to chat with you in the future.
All right, Kevin. Yeah, man. I appreciate it.
All right. You take it easy.